Rodriguez had been swinging a bat since he could barely walk. At 12 years old, he lived and breathed baseball, spending every free moment at Maple Field practicing his swing or fielding grounders until the sun disappeared behind the old oak trees that bordered the diamond. His bedroom walls were covered with posters of his heroes, and his glove never left his side during baseball season. The Riverside Ravens weren't the best team in the league, but they had heart. Tommy played shortstop and batted cleanup, carrying the hopes of his teammates and the handful of parents who showed up to cheer from the rickety bleachers. Coach Martinez always said Tommy had natural talent, but what he really had was determination that burned brighter than the summer sun beating down on the infield dirt. The championship game against the Westfield Warriors arrived on a sweltering Tuesday afternoon in late July. The Warriors had won the league 3 years running, and their pitcher, Jake Morrison, threw fastballs that made even the older kids nervous. Tommy's palms were sweaty as he adjusted his batting helmet and stepped into the batter's box for what would become the most important at-bat of his young life. The score was tied 4-4 in the bottom of the ninth inning. 2 outs, bases loaded. The crowd had grown throughout the game, and now nearly 100 people lined the fence, their voices creating a buzz of excitement that made Tommy's heart race. His little sister Maria was somewhere in that crowd, probably wearing his spare jersey and cheering louder than anyone else. Jake Morrison wound up and delivered a blazing fastball right down the middle. Tommy's eyes locked onto the white sphere as it approached home plate, and something magical happened. Time seemed to slow down. He could see the red stitching rotating, could feel his muscles coiling like a spring, could hear his own heartbeat thundering in his ears. The bat connected with a crack that echoed across the field like thunder. The ball rocketed off Tommy's aluminum bat with such force that several spectators gasped audibly. It soared high into the cloudless blue sky, climbing higher and higher until it became just a tiny white dot against the endless expanse above Maple Field. Everyone craned their necks upward, shielding their eyes from the sun as they tracked the ball's incredible trajectory. Tommy dropped his bat and began his home run trot, but something was wrong. The ball wasn't coming down. It kept climbing, defying gravity and logic, until it disappeared completely from view. That's when the bird appeared. A magnificent red-tailed hawk swooped down from seemingly nowhere, its powerful wings cutting through the air with graceful precision. The crowd watched in stunned silence as the hawk snatched Tommy's home run ball right out of the sky, clutching it in its sharp talons before banking sharply to the left and disappearing over the tree line. The umpire stood frozen behind home plate, his mouth hanging open. Nobody knew what to call it. Was it a home run? A foul ball? An act of God? After several minutes of heated discussion between the coaches and officials, they ruled it a ground rule double, allowing 2 runs to score and giving the Ravens a 6-4 victory. Tommy should have been celebrating with his teammates, but he couldn't stop staring at the spot where the hawk had vanished with his ball. That wasn't just any baseball. It was the same one his grandfather had given him before he passed away last spring, the one with the faded signature of Roberto Clemente that Grandpa had caught at a Pirates game in 1971. That night, Tommy lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying the incredible moment over and over in his mind. He'd hit the ball of his dreams, the kind of shot that would have sailed clear over the fence and into legend, only to have it stolen by a bird. Sleep came fitfully, filled with dreams of soaring baseballs and majestic hawks circling overhead. The next morning dawned gray and overcast, with thick clouds promising afternoon thunderstorms. Tommy was eating breakfast when he heard a sharp tapping sound coming from his bedroom window. At first he ignored it, thinking it was just tree branches scraping against the glass, but the tapping grew more insistent and rhythmic. Curious, Tommy climbed the stairs to investigate. As he approached his bedroom window, he could hardly believe what he saw. Perched on the narrow sill outside was the same red-tailed hawk from yesterday's game, and clutched in its beak was his grandfather's baseball. The hawk's fierce yellow eyes locked onto Tommy's through the glass, and it tapped the ball against the window 3 more times before dropping it onto the sill. Tommy's hands trembled as he slowly raised the window, the old wooden frame creaking in protest. The moment the window opened, the hawk darted forward with lightning speed. Tommy felt a sharp pain as the bird's beak clamped down on his right index finger, the same finger he used to grip his bat. The bite lasted only a second, but it felt like electricity coursing through his entire body. The hawk released his finger and took flight, circling once around Tommy's house before disappearing into the gray morning sky. Tommy stood at the window, nursing his throbbing finger and staring at the baseball that now sat on his windowsill. A single drop of his blood had stained the faded signature of Roberto Clemente. The bite mark was small but deep, and Tommy's mother insisted on cleaning it thoroughly and applying antibiotic ointment. She wanted to take him to the doctor, but Tommy convinced her it wasn't necessary. What he didn't tell her was that his finger had stopped hurting almost immediately, and now it tingled with a strange, warm energy that seemed to pulse in rhythm with his heartbeat. That afternoon, Despite the threatening weather, Tommy grabbed his glove and headed to Maple Field for batting practice. The field was empty except for old Mr. Henderson, the groundskeeper, who was dragging the infield despite the approaching storm clouds. Tommy set up the pitching machine and loaded it with baseballs, adjusting the speed to its highest setting. As he stepped into the batter's box, he noticed something different about his grip. His right index finger, though one the hawk had bitten, seemed to know exactly where to position itself on the bat handle. The grip felt perfect, natural, like his hand had been designed specifically for this moment. The first pitch came screaming toward home plate at nearly 70 miles per hour. Tommy's eyes tracked the ball with supernatural clarity. He could see every detail, the rotation of the stitches, the slight wobble caused by the machine's mechanical arm, even tiny scuff marks on the leather surface. When he swung, the bat moved through the strike zone with fluid perfection. The ball exploded off his bat with a sound like a cannon firing. It sailed over the center field fence, over the parking lot, over the street, and crashed through the window of Murphy's hardware store 3 blocks away. Tommy stood frozen at home plate, staring at the destruction he'd caused with a single swing. The second pitch yielded similar results, this one clearing not just the fence but the entire neighborhood, disappearing into the distance like a rocket ship bound for orbit. The third pitch he decided to bunt, just to test his control. The ball barely touched his bat, yet it shot forward like a line drive, embedding itself 6 inches deep in the pitcher's mound. Mr. Henderson came running over, his eyes wide with disbelief. He'd seen Tommy play dozens of times before, but this was something entirely different. This was impossible. Over the next several days, Tommy experimented with his newfound abilities in secret. He could hit any pitch, anywhere he wanted, with whatever force he chose. Fastballs, curveballs, knuckleballs, it didn't matter. His bat found them all with mechanical precision. He could place a ball in any section of the outfield, or launch it into the stratosphere with barely any effort. But the powers extended beyond just hitting. His fielding had become supernatural as well. Ground balls seemed to slow down as they approached him, giving him all the time in the world to position himself perfectly. Fly balls hung in the air longer, allowing him to glide beneath them with graceful ease. His throwing arm had gained incredible strength and accuracy. He could fire a baseball from home plate to second base in a perfectly straight line, the ball arriving with such velocity that it hummed through the air. The Ravens' next game was against the Millbrook Mustangs, a team they'd beaten handily earlier in the season. Tommy's teammates noticed something different about him during warm-ups. His practice swings looked effortless, yet the balls he hit during batting practice carried farther than anyone had ever seen. When the game began, Tommy's first at-bat came in the second inning with runners on first and third. The Mustangs pitcher, confident from their previous meeting, threw a fastball right down the middle. Tommy made contact with what appeared to be a gentle swing, but the ball rocketed over the left field fence so quickly that the outfielder didn't even have time to turn around. His second at-bat resulted in another home run, this one traveling even farther than the first. By his third trip to the plate, word had spread throughout the small town that something extraordinary was happening at Maple Field. Cars began pulling into the parking lot, and people emerged from nearby houses to witness what everyone was calling a miracle. Tommy's third swing sent the ball so high and so far that it disappeared completely from view, just like his hit in the championship game. This time, however, no bird appeared to claim it. The ball simply vanished into the clouds, never to be seen again. The game ended with the Ravens winning 23-2, Tommy accounting for 15 of those runs with 7 home runs and 8 RBIs. Local newspaper reporters arrived during the final innings, frantically scribbling notes and snapping photographs of the boy who was rewriting the record books with every swing. But as Tommy rounded the bases after his 7th home run, he caught sight of a familiar silhouette perched atop the scoreboard. The red-tailed hawk sat motionless, watching him with those piercing yellow eyes. When their gazes met, Tommy felt the same electric tingle in his finger that he'd experienced since the bite. In that moment, he understood. The hawk hadn't stolen his grandfather's baseball out of malice or mischief. It had been delivering a gift, passing along something that couldn't be earned or taught or bought. The bird had chosen him, just as his grandfather's spirit had somehow guided that magnificent creature to his window. As Tommy crossed home plate and accepted the congratulations of his teammates, he looked up at the scoreboard one more time. The hawk spread its powerful wings and took flight, circling the field once before disappearing into the evening sky. Tommy touched the small scar on his finger and smiled, knowing that some gifts come from the most unexpected places, and that sometimes magic is real if you're brave enough to believe in it. The legend of Tommy Rodriguez and his supernatural baseball abilities would grow with each passing game, but he never forgot the moment when a wild bird changed his life forever, delivering not just a baseball, but a destiny written in the stars above Maple Field.